Imagine you're at a wedding. The ceremony was beautiful. Everything was perfect. This is just exactly what you want a wedding to be. The reception's a blast. You're with a bunch of friends. It's not like one of those stuffy, uptight things where you don't really know anybody and you're having to make this awkward small talk, but you're just having a good time. You're with your closest friends in the world. You're at a table with your closest friends in the world. There are 9 of them at this table, and it's just been awesome. You've had the best night of your life. At one point, you get up, you have to use the facilities, you use the bathroom, you're gone 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. But when you come back to the table, something has changed. You were having a good time, but the energy in the room has somehow got up. Something's different. One of your friends says you will not believe what just happened while you were gone. You won't believe it. In a million years, you would never guess what just happened while you were gone. And you have no idea. You can't even begin to guess. And that friend says, Dwayne Johnson and Danny DeVito were just here. They sang Unforgettable to the bride and groom, and they left, and you missed it. Now, if your friend said that, some of you would think, many of you, most of you would think, they're messing with me, right? They're messing with me. I mean, first of all, Dwayne Johnson and Danny DeVito don't even know each other. Can you imagine the two of them together? There's just no way. Some of you are like, I have no idea who Danny DeVito is or Dwayne Johnson. The Rock and, who is it, Louis De Palma from Taxi? You remember that a long time ago? Anybody old enough to remember Taxi in here? Oh, okay, yeah. If you're nodding or raising your hand, you are not a millennial. I apologize. Now, what if you were like, there's no way, I'm not falling for this practical joke again, but what if they had photographic evidence? How many of you would be like, okay, listen, I'm no rube. I know about this AI stuff. I know what they can do with fake news and photographs. First of all, who can trust the New York Post? That's just some tabloid. And secondly, who can trust a photograph these days? Some of you might still be skeptical even if there was some pretty good evidence. In fact, I think at this moment you would start to divide personalities because there's some of you who want to believe and that's exciting and magical and you like the idea that the world is a place where you could be at a random wedding and famous people might show up and sing songs. And some of you are reserved, and this isn't necessarily bad, but you don't want to live in a world where things happen that are beyond your control and outside of your experience, and you're just not sure that you want that. So it wouldn't necessarily be whether or not you believe the evidence. It might have to do with the kind of person you are and the way that you think. If you have your Bibles, turn to John chapter 20. If you don't have your Bibles, it will be on the screen. John chapter 20, verse 24. Now, Thomas. Thomas is the Aramaic word for twin. He also had a Greek name, Didymus, which, do you know what Didymus means? Twin. His parents were not very creative when they named him. Because they were like, oh, here's one who probably got the name they planned on. Oh, and here's another. What are we going to call him? He's the twin. I don't know. So Thomas, if your name is Thomas, it just means twin. That's all. He was one of the 12, remember the 12 apostles. He was not, listen to this, he was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So this is all post-resurrection stuff. This is all stuff where all the stuff on the cross has happened, all the stories in the Gospels have happened, everything has happened, and everybody's a little deflated because they don't know what's going on. But Jesus has showed up to a few people, but Thomas wasn't there. Thomas had something else going on. He had a little business to attend to. And it goes on, we have seen, verse 25, the other disciples told him, we have seen the Lord. But he said to him, that's just AI. I'm not going to buy into the fake news. There's no way. And he says this, listen to this, what he's asking. Unless I see the nail marks in his hand and put my finger where the nails were. I want to touch the wound. Now, in the story of the crucifixion, there's this scene where Jesus is on the cross, and to check if he's dead, somebody spears Jesus in the side. And Thomas says, I need to put my hand in that wound before I would believe. That's a little ridiculous, Thomas. That's a little much. We'll talk about that in a second. But unless I do that, I will not believe. So here's the difference between the wedding scenario, which is a true story, by the way. That really did happen. Danny DeVito and The Rock showed up at a wedding and sang Unforgettable and then bailed. Can you imagine that? It'd be the greatest moment of your life. It would overshadow the wedding. You would have kids later and you'd be like, that was pretty good, but one time Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Danny DeVito showed up on my wedding. That would be it. So the difference between what we're reading here in John 20 and that story that we saw the headline of is they're not claiming two people who exist in the world showed up and sang Unforgettable. As preposterous as that might be, it's possible. What they're claiming is two people that have died, or a person that has died. It would be like saying Elvis and Prince showed up. You would definitely not believe that claim. You'd be like, there's no way. Absolutely could not happen. I'm certain that could not happen. That's a bonkers claim. Of course, Thomas is skeptical. We would be too. You would be too. But here's the question. What if these are 9 of your closest friends in the world? What if they kept insisting it was true? What if it wasn't like just that night, but the next morning you got up and everybody went to go get coffee together and they're like, Thomas, I'm telling you, buddy, this happened. This is true. You would have a decision to make. You would have to decide, okay, well, there's something going on here, and I want to know more because they're really into it. Or one of the friends, one of the 9 is going to break if this is some kind of joke. Or you would have to start questioning, are these even my friends? This relationship might be over because they're not letting go of this ridiculous story. Verse 26, a week later, a week goes by. His disciples were in the house again, and Thomas this time was with them, and I don't know if Thomas is like, man, I missed out. I'm hanging out with these guys. Though the doors were locked, fun detail, Jesus came in and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, hey, buddy, put your finger right here. Put it in the hole in my hand. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. He says, stop doubting and believe. And Thomas said, that's just special effects makeup. That's just AI. You're just a hallucination. No. Thomas said to Jesus, said these words to him, my Lord and my God. If this is your first time at church or your first time in a long time and you were worried that coming today, church would be a little weird, well, let me go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. It is going to be a little weird for you. How many of you got nervous just now? I just want to tell you from the outset what we actually believe here, what I actually believe. I actually believe that Jesus was a living, breathing being, that he actually walked the earth, that people saw him and interacted with him and talked to him, that he drew breath into his lungs, that his cardiovascular system pumped blood through his veins. I believe that. I believe that Jesus died, that he flatlined, that all bodily functions ceased, that the brain synapses stopped firing. I believe that all that stopped. But then I believe that 3 days later, he came back to life. This is the weird part. So far, so good. But this is the strange part, that 3 days later, all those systems started back up again in some way that doesn't make sense, that we don't understand, that we can't even fathom. And that when he came back up and he came out of that grave, he still had scars. He still had a hole in his side. There was something about how he had come back that we don't even fully grasp because we got this weirdo idea of heaven that we're all going to be ethereal spirits floating around. And that's not what the Bible teaches at all. That he came back and he was the first. Other people had been raised from the dead, but Jesus was the first person who said, death cannot keep me down. And we believe, or I believe, let me say, I don't want to speak for all of you, I believe, believing that can change everything about your life. Believing what I just said can change everything about your life. How so? What can it change, Patrick? I'm a little skeptical. Well, I believe it means that death does not have the last word in your life. If you're going through difficult things, if you've lost people who are close to you, if you're going through pain and suffering, that death that is at the inevitable end of your life doesn't have to be the thing that defines you. Death has no hold, no sway. It doesn't have to. I believe that we can be forgiven, truly, deeply, completely forgiven. Not for that stuff that you think like, oh, in 8th grade I said a bad word one time and my mom might have heard me, but maybe she didn't. But that stuff that's deep and dark and keeps you up at night and makes you wonder, what does God do with that? I believe you can be forgiven of that. I believe that we, followers of Jesus, will live forever. And that life is not a mad scramble to hoard resources here and now. That because we live forever, we have the opportunity to sacrifice and give things away because we don't only have 60, 70, 80, 90 years. That we actually genuinely do have forever in some way. I believe that things in this world are broken, but they won't stay broken. That God will heal all things. That the injustice and the pain and the terribleness that we see in the world won't be forever. And the people that perpetuate those things won't go without punishment forever because of Jesus. I believe that meaning in life is a gift, not an accomplishment. I believe that you can reach the pinnacle of whatever industry you're in or whatever field you're in or whatever you like to measure your life by, and you can still feel empty because meaning is a gift given to you by God, not something you can grab and attain. And I believe all those things are true because of Jesus. I doubt that, Patrick. I don't know. That's too big. That's too much. I don't think that's true. And I understand. I get it. I'm a doubter myself, by the way. I'm a doubter. I want you to know one more thing that I believe. I believe that your doubt can lead you closer to Jesus. I believe your doubt can be a pathway that brings you to Jesus. Let's talk about doubt for a minute. I'm a doubter. One way that I'm a really bad parent is that when my kids get sick, I don't believe them. Unless there is solid evidence, I think that they're being wimpy or trying to get out of something. And you know why I think that? Because I feel fine. And I lack the imagination that anybody could feel differently than I do. It's one of my greatest flaws. Just ask my family. They really intensely dislike this quality about me, this skepticism. Dad, I'm not feeling good. Walk it off. Drink some water. You'll be fine. Go to school. I think people that are around my kids when I send them to school sick also probably dislike this quality about me. Here's why they intensely dislike this quality. This is a flaw. I'm not saying this is a good thing. This is a flaw in my character. Here's why they dislike it. One, when I get sick, it is sackcloth and ashes. It is lamenting. Nobody has ever been as sick as I have been. It's sweatpants and hoodies, and I pull up the hoodie and I mope around the house, moaning and groaning, hoping that somebody will give me sympathy, that they'll believe me. Now, how many of you are like, yeah, I hope they punch you right in the throat because you're a terrible person. I'm just telling you what I'm like. I'm getting better. Number two, the second reason that it really bothers them, that I don't believe them, it's frustrating to tell the truth and to not be believed. It's frustrating because you're like, that's all I got. It's the truth. It's real. It's the way I feel. I work at a church, this one, by the way. I work at a church and I have doubts about God. And this is a strange Sunday to be honest about those doubts, but I want you to know that even someone who deeply loves God and who can make those proclamations about the character and person of Jesus and what those things mean for the world still has doubts. I want to give you my top 3 doubts. Some of you are going to be uncomfortable with this. Number 1, it bothers me that innocent children suffer. I can barely wrap my mind around the fact that there are bad people in the world who cause suffering, but I don't like it, especially when it's little children. But man, when you see the news, when you see these little tiny bodies wrapped in sheets in Gaza, and you're just like, what happens is we get overwhelmed by the political perspectives of it. And we get upset because it means something about our politics, but forget all that. When you see this little human form that has lost their life because of who knows what? Who knows why? Really? Well, they did this and then they did that, but then who cares? It's a little tiny child. Kids that get cancer, it really bothers. I'm like, who am I that it bothers me? So sometimes I struggle. Like, is God really loving and just? Because these things don't feel loving and just. It bothers me. Number two, it bothers me that the answers to my prayers aren't more obvious. Now, some of you are like, well, God always answers my prayer. Well, good for you. That's great. Maybe we should all just give you our prayer requests, because that would help the rest of us out a lot. Because here's what I would like. I would love it if I prayed the thing, and then the thing immediately happened. Right? That would be great. And people would be like, does God answer prayer? And I'd be like, yes. Yeah, I would love that. But I pray all the time for things that I'm uncertain what God has done with those prayers. I still pray. But I wonder sometimes. Sometimes, is God really listening to and answering prayers? Is God? I hope so. Number three. I didn't put these in order. I really hit you with the top ones first. Number three, it really bothers me that Christians aren't on the whole nicer people. Right? I mean, can we all agree that it would be better if all the nice, good, happy, fun, loving, joy-filled people were Christians and all the mean, ugly, rude people were Satanists, right? That would be, you'd be like, oh, yeah, well, he's a Christian. It's obvious. That's why he's a nice guy. And no, it doesn't work like that. There's people who don't believe in God who are very kind and thoughtful and gracious. And there's people who are Christians who are not so much. In fact, I think we can all agree, right? Call me crazy. But if all Christians, even the ones in the public square, would say our priority is to exemplify the fruit of the Spirit and glorify Jesus, that's what we live for. I would love that. That would be awesome. But half the time, people in the public square trying to be Christians, I find it a little embarrassing. Because I don't think that the way that they behave and the way that they think and the way that they operate in the world reflects me or Jesus very well. I wish it were different. So here's the doubt. Is Christianity really effective for transformation? Is it? Now some of you, I told you I was going to make you uncomfortable, and you're like, Patrick, this is a cry for help. No, I promise it's not. It's not at all. It really isn't. I have responses, not answers, to those doubts. I have responses. But they're just okay responses. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to come ask me that, express those doubts to me, I would respond to you, and you'd be like, I guess that's okay. Your review would be like a 2.5 out of 5. You'd be like, it's all right. It's an okay answer. It's like going to Denny's. Like, it's fine. It's okay. It's not where I want to go if I want to enjoy my meal. So, if I were God, I would do things a little differently. Wouldn't you? You would. The answer is yes, you would. You would do things differently. Some of you are like, Patrick, I thought we were going to come and have our faith built up, not torn down. Hang on. And by the way, if you're getting hung up on my doubts, there's a lot of resources. In fact, I got 2 books. Show these real quick, would you? Read either of these books. They, in a much more articulate way, express good, thoughtful responses to those questions. I go back to them all the time. They're just super good. So let me give you this. This is important for you to hear. I expressed my doubts. I was honest. I was open. I was vulnerable. I want you to be open and vulnerable here. Okay? When God operates in ways that we don't understand, there are only 2 possible conclusions. Okay? There's only 2. The first possible conclusion is that God is absent, indifferent, or non-existent. And that's where a lot of people fall. Sometimes even people who come to church feel like that. I don't see it. There's too much pain and suffering and hurt and harm, and Christians are too ugly. This has got to be it. Maybe God created everything, but he sort of walked away because it got to be too much of a mess. It was like with my sister in the hotel. God opened the door on humanity, and he's like, oh, nope, no, I'm gone. That's how some people feel. Either that is true. When God does things that you don't understand, either he is absent, indifferent, or non-existent, or there are things that exist that are beyond your understanding. Those are your two options. Either God is indifferent or doesn't exist, or there are things that exist that are beyond your understanding. Guess what, church? We already know, we have definitive proof that number 2 is true. We know number 2 is true. You have things that are beyond your understanding. Here's a short list of things that I don't understand. It took me about 3 minutes to type that out. And you know why it took 3 minutes? Because I had to spell check it, because I also don't understand spelling. This is stuff I don't understand. I'm enjoying the audience participation. I'm just discovering that many of you cannot read without reading out loud. That's really good to know. You got to sound it out. I get it. Phonetics are hard. These are things I don't understand. Now, don't get caught up looking at that and thinking, uh-oh, I understand that thing, so I must be able to understand God. You don't understand God. That's the bottom line. We better move on from this page, Cammy, because people are losing it. They are losing it. I will email you that later if you're like, I would love a list of things you don't understand, Patrick. I would like to add to it for you. That would be great. So here's the deal. Do you have questions about God? Welcome to the club. So do I. I have questions that I will ask God when I get a chance. What in the world was going on with this? You have doubts? So do we. Here's the cool thing. You're in a room full of smart, thoughtful people who have spent a lot of time thinking about these things, but they found a way to allow those questions and doubts to draw them closer to Jesus. Not because they have answers that they understood, but because they realized that there were things that existed in the world beyond their understanding. And God is in that category. It's really important. What I just told you is not important because I'm telling it to you. It's important because it's true. There are things in the world beyond your understanding, and God belongs in that category. That really bothers some people because they want to understand everything. You will always struggle. You will always struggle if you say, I will not believe until I can understand God. You'll always struggle. And maybe you're okay with that. How have people allowed these doubts to bring them to Jesus? Let me show you. Doubt isn't actually the problem. This is the secret. Doubt isn't actually the problem. It's not a problem to doubt. It's true. But some of you are like, wait a second. We just read a passage, Patrick, and the passage where Jesus said, stop doubting and believe. So it sounds like doubt's a problem. He literally said, stop doubting. Doubt has gone in and out of favor over the years. Have you noticed this? It's super fun to see this because all this stuff, I mean, I know this, every generation says this is not a new observation, but when I was in high school, the cool thing was the wide leg pants. Not like pants that were like 60 inches at their base. Is that what it's called? The base of the pants? Were super popular. You could put like 3 or 4 toddlers inside the leg of each pair of pants. You remember this? In the 90s, some of you are like, well, you weren't cool in the 90s, I guess, so that's all right. All that stuff's coming back. VHS tapes. We got rid of all our VHS tapes, and now people are going to garage sales and thrift stores to replenish their VHS tape supplies because VCRs are cool again. Doubt has gone from cool to not cool back to cool. Originally, back in the day, and this is some of how many of us grew up, doubt was a sin. We were told doubt was a sin. What? Because Jesus said stop doubting, so it must be a sin. And what's Thomas's nickname? His nickname is Twin, by the way. You weren't listening at the beginning, so No, you're right. It was Doubting Thomas. That's what everybody called him because Thomas was a bad example. Bad Thomas. You should have believed your 9 friends that told you that Jesus existed. You are so dumb, Thomas, and you missed out. No, Thomas, hang on. If you want, and this is the conclusion. I don't want to get ahead of myself. This is the conclusion people had. If they wondered if this was all true, they thought they might be a bad person. So some of you attended church for years and years and years, and you had big questions, and you thought, I must be a bad person, and I can't tell anybody about it because I don't want them to think I'm a bad person. But then, later, doubt became cool, sort of. Not cool in the sense that, I get to be skeptical and cynical all the time. But even during the Enlightenment, people discovered that doubt was a great way to verify truth. It's called falsification. Rather than just trying to set up a bunch of experiments to prove that something's true, you set up experiments to prove something false. And then if you can't prove it false, it must be true. That's the Enlightenment taught us that doubt was a helpful tool for discovery. In fact, it's in the Bible. The Bible says, don't believe everything. John wrote those words. Don't believe everything. So John, who wrote these words here, also wrote, don't believe everything. Doubt some things. Doubt keeps us, hopefully, from clicking on the easy pass toll texts that you get. Have you gotten those? Doubt keeps you from clicking on those. Not all of you, because some of you have gotten scammed. Doubt keeps us from sending $850,000 to a scammer thinking you're in love with Brad Pitt. This really happened. Some poor lady thought Brad Pitt was sending her personal texts. And you can see the pictures in the article, and it's like bad Photoshop. And this poor lady, if she had had a little bit more skepticism, a little bit more doubt keeps us from joining cults. Have you ever met somebody who was in a cult and you're like, wow, these people are so friendly. They're so nice. They want to hang out with me every day. Okay, yeah, they believe Jesus was a Martian, but no. And then this little doubt, I don't know about that. They say I have to divest my 401k and give their leader all my money. I don't know. I doubt that. Doubt keeps us from bad religious beliefs. So here's what I want to say. Doubt is a sign, not a sin. Doubt is a sign, not a sin. It's like a check engine light that says, hold up, we should look at this. Let's dig into this a little bit more. Because doubt wasn't actually Thomas's problem in the text. It wasn't doubt. That's not what his problem was. Take another look. I'm going to go through this quick, but this is important. The Bible was written in what language? Aramaic. Greek and Aramaic. Yeah, I love the Aramaic. Who's good job, Trenton. The Bible was written with Greek, but there was some occasional Aramaic words in there. But Greek has some fun grammatical stuff that we don't have in English. And if I'm not good with grammar in English, I'm very bad with grammar in Greek, but I've relied on some thoughtful people who know this stuff that have revealed this. But a couple of things in the text. Go to the next slide if you would. The first thing, this is really cool. The word told and the word said are in this tense that we don't use in English. They're in an imperfect, active, indicative text. I don't know what that means, but what it's explained to me is that it means that this is an ongoing thing. So they were having an argument. The disciples rather were saying, Thomas, we saw Jesus, and they kept saying it, and they were trying to persuade him, and Thomas kept arguing back. It was like a whole week-long argument. It was the thing that they were talking about. So we're told that this isn't just like one-time thing. It was this constant argument. They kept telling him, and he kept arguing. Have you ever wanted to win an argument so badly that you let your claims get ahead of the evidence? Your pride got ahead of the proof? Yeah, because if you don't keep the argument going, you're going to fall flat on your face. Have you ever done that? Yeah, a lot of us have done that. There's something like that going on in the text. They're continuing to argue. Number two, the next thing Thomas says is he puts these ridiculous expectations on it. He says, unless I put my finger in the wound. He's over-arguing. He's saying there's no way that this can happen, and unless Elvis wakes up from the grave and tells me these words directly, I won't believe. Unless I put my finger in the wound, I won't believe. It's ridiculous. He's being ridiculous. It's gross, but he's being ridiculous. The next thing he says in the next verse, he says, I will not believe. And there's an intensifier in the Greek, which is kind of cool, because literally it should say, I will never, ever, 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 ever believe you. But that sounds too childish, so they didn't translate it that way. And then the fourth thing that is important for us to know is the word is not, doubt isn't really a helpful translation. The word is the word belief, and then it's the word a in front of it. So like theist and an atheist, it's belief with a. It's disbelief. That's the problem in this text. He's not doubting. He's not saying, guys, this is a really big thing. Can you help me understand what it is that you're claiming? He's saying, absolutely not. See, Thomas's problem isn't that he's doubting. Thomas's problem is that he's certain. He's for sure he's right. We've mislabeled him doubting Thomas. We should call him overly confident Thomas. That's the problem in the text. Anne Lamott has a good quote that, and this is right, just file this one away. The opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. And the resurrection is a challenge to our certainties. It is. But doubt can lead you closer to Jesus. So what does Jesus do? Jesus gets real mad at Thomas. He's so angry. He's fuming at Thomas. No. Jesus shows up. Then he said to Thomas, he's like, hey, buddy, here I am. I want to go ahead and touch. Go ahead. Yeah, stick your finger right in there. It'll go through the other side. It's pretty cool. You want to put your hand right in here? Go ahead. What does Thomas do? He does not do that. Why? Because that's not really what he was asking for. He wasn't asking to actually touch it. He was trying to make a claim so big that there was no way that the evidence could actually meet it, and here is Jesus meeting it. Here's why Thomas is a good example. Thomas is a good example. It's not that he got it wrong. We all get it wrong all the time. You've been wrong. You've probably been wrong today. You all get it wrong all the time. It's that he admitted he was wrong. That's why Thomas is a good example. And he says, my Lord and my God. Now, the book of John has been dropping hints throughout the whole story. At the beginning, it says the Word was God, and then the Word became flesh, and we've been getting hints all along, but here it says it really explicitly. I mean, we're told about Jesus and who he is and who he's revealed to be. Everybody thought he was just this carpenter's son, and we even call him a carpenter, and that makes it a little cooler than it really was. He was a construction worker. He was a construction worker's son. And he was walking around healing people and telling them that their sins were forgiven. And the people who knew him were claiming that he was sinless. He was saying, I'm descended from heaven. He was saying, before Abraham was, I was. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He accepts worship. He's revealing himself. But here is the most explicit statement about his identity, my Lord and my God. And Jesus just stands there and takes it. It's a big deal. So what? So what, Patrick? That's nice. This is all nice. Even if all this is true, even if Jesus is God, so what? Who cares? I still got work. I got deadlines. My kids are fussy. I'm struggling to figure out what I need to do with my life and have meaning. And I'm a little worried because I've got this headache that won't go away. And I'm worried it's something bigger than a headache. And I've just got to figure out, like, at work, why am I not making the progress I want to make in? So what about Jesus? That's great, but so what? That was thousands of years ago. So what? Well, if what Jesus claims is true, then death doesn't have the last word. That grief that you experience doesn't have to be overwhelming. If what Jesus actually said is true, then grace exists, like cosmic, endless grace exists for every dark thing that you have ever thought or ever done. There is a way back from that. If what Jesus has said is true, then you can give your life on behalf of others because you have an endless supply of life. Jesus called it eternal life. And you can spend your life for others. And you know what happens when you spend your life for others? You discover purpose and meaning. But when you hoard your life for yourself, you know what you discover? Emptiness and isolation and loneliness. Interesting. It's almost like Jesus talked about this. If you look at the world and you're like, things are messed up and things are broken and the bad guys keep getting away with it. Well, if Jesus really did live and die and rise again, then one day everything will be restored. We have something to look forward to and long for, and we can work toward now because one day that work will pay off. Life doesn't have to be a scramble for significance because we're given meaning and purpose as a gift. Jesus taught us all that. You know what other thing Jesus said? Jesus said, I'm going to die, and then I'm going to come back. And if Jesus didn't do that, then what do the other things really matter? Well, it doesn't really matter. If he can't produce results with the one thing, then the other things don't matter. I'm going to wrap up with this. I find it interesting. There's a lot of companies that do statistics about Christianity and growth, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions we could ask, but one of the things that they point out is that Christianity spreads fastest among the poor, the marginalized, and the oppressed. That's where Christianity spreads fastest. It's just like wildfire. It's very slow among the affluent and the self-satisfied. But the poor, the marginalized, and the oppressed, it spreads so fast. And so it's skyrocketing. As best as they can tell, in places like Iran and China and Sudan and South Sudan, Christianity is just flourishing. Do you think Christianity is flourishing in those places because of what Jesus taught? Like, hey guys, you marginalized, oppressed, outcast people, turn the other cheek. Love your enemies. Or do you think it flourishes because there is a hope for life beyond this life? That this life and the way those groups have been treated are not the final word. I believe they're drawn to Jesus because of hope. Because of hope. We actually believe that Jesus lived and breathed. We believe he died. We believe that 3 days later he came back from death. Not because somebody else said, okay, you're done being dead, but because death could not keep him. And we believe that that fact can change everything about your life. I'm going to wrap up with this, I promise. John, the guy that wrote this gospel, who shared this story about Thomas, who I told you earlier was at the crucifixion of Jesus, he actually wrote later in his life too. So he wrote Gospel of John maybe when he was a little younger, but later in his life he wrote again, and he wrote a few letters. And one of the letters, he writes something that I think is super fascinating. Because if this is a joke, if this is a prank, then he's really invested in it. Because when he was 80, scholars tell us that he penned these words, 1 John 1:1, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at and our hands have touched. This we proclaim concerning the word of life. The life appeared. We have seen it. We testify to it. And we proclaim to you the eternal life which was with the Father and has appeared to us. Man, 80 years is a long time for a joke. I think it's really too long, if you ask me. I think John was telling the truth, that he saw Jesus crucified, and then days later he saw him back with the wounds in his body. Everybody has a next step, and the question is, what is your next step?